Chapter 33, Episode 8, Final. The support this story's been getting, even inspiring a few public creator accounts just for me and this story. Stop you guys, don't make me the only reason you're here. It's amazing. Thank you guys for showing some faith in me, even after all this time. That being said, between a computer that can't charge its battery, work, bills, a 360 that died of an old age, and the ability to play only a single game that I recently discovered and absolutely love, it's called Yomi for those who might be curious. It's been tough trying to find the motivation to write this. I'm not saying that I don't want to write this story, far from it, but everything upon me leaves me drained just about every day, even on my days off. I'm constantly coming up with ideas for this thing, as well as some of my other works, but having the energy to put pen to paper, or fingers to keys as it were, is a rarity in my life right now. Anyway, back to the story. Quickly, I'd like to address a question and review from Nina. It's not anything spoiler-like, so I feel comfortable divulging this information. The Fear Spikes is a nod to the Megaman games, other than the Battle Network and Star Force series. Players defy this fear as they go through the games, as touching environmental spikes leads to instant death. The fear is a small joke about that fact. Now, I always fear of needles on the other hand. That stems from redacted. Hope that didn't ruin too much for you. Nothing about this chapter. It's probably going to be confusing. There's going to be a few jumps from past to present. I'm going to try my best to keep this as coherent as possible, but I might lose a few of you on the way. Also, this particular moment does not happen in the games, though I did try and draw inspiration from an early 0-1 mission. Sorry about that. Sorry people, the light keeps falling out on me. 20 minutes earlier, lights washed over his vision, seemingly racing away from his intended destination. At this point, he'd been using this system for nearly 5 years. 5 years since his first battle with Copy-X, as he'd been labeled by the Resistance Army. 5 years since he'd been woken in that dark, abandoned laboratory. 5 years since he discovered they had no mirror at the time of his deactivation. 5 years since he'd met CL. He's been using the latest available in transfer technology. Hey, that was the latest technology in the world. See, you say that, but I distinctly remember the Resistance base falling apart in more places than you had hands preparing them. As I was saying, they quickly moved from the Resistance Army base to fire positions around the country in order to complete missions against New Arcadia. In all that time, he'd tried to get used to the thing he would get every time he used the technology. The thing that he was hit a snack he couldn't work around. The thing that what or whoever he would face during this next strike against New Arcadia would be too much for him to be able to handle. The thing that this mission would be his last. Again. After a few moments, the light streaking by became washed out by a single blinding light. Zero blinked a few times, forcing both called to return and the fin out of his system. His feet were planted on solid ground, though the demolished state of the cityscape around him could have fooled him. He looked around his position, taking in the ruins around him and attempting to identify any potential threats around him. Once he was certain he was clear, he brought one hand up to his helmet and tapped a small button on the side. Zero base. Reached insertion point. Awaiting further instruction. Static rang in his ear for a moment before an answer from a fear voice came. Mission control to Unit 0. Zero was his urge to roll his eyes. What was the point creating a unit when he was only member of said unit? Your orders are as follows. Locate and infiltrate the New Arcadia information submarine. Once inside, you are to locate a computer where you can safely and discreetly upload copies of any information you can retrieve to our system. Bear in mind that this is a stealth operation, so keep contact to a minimum. The submarine's last reported location is 2 kilometers from your present location, and reports indicate the submarine is still there. Is your mission clear? Understood. Zero out. Tapping the button again, Zero began walking the waypoint marked on his optical display. I frowned at that. Wait, I never heard anything about you having an optical display. It was an optical display. It was built into my eyes, and I wasn't exactly letting people take me apart and study me. I guess I can understand that. I don't want people poking around in my head either. Several Reploids sat at computers in the dark room. At the center, a distinct blue Reploid sat facing the room's main monitor. A blinking red blip flashed on the map of the city Seer transferred into. As the blip started inching towards the map's coastline, the Reploid smiled to herself. Well, that was easy enough. Leak a little information to the right person, and the Resistance comes rushing in. One of the other Reploids turned from his own monitor to her. Should we move to intercept? The Fountain shook her head. No, let's not just yet. Let's let them doubt things a bit. Yes, ma'am. The father rose from a chair and made it to leave the room. I'll be in my course if you need me. Please, for the love of X, don't need me. Minutes passed before Cyril finally reached the water line indicated on his map. A buzz shot through his ear. Mission Control Unit 0. Cyril tapped his helmet again. 0, base. The submarine should be just ahead. You need to act quickly and get inside. The submarine is likely deep enough that the water pressure would crush you if you don't get to safety fast enough. Understood. Anything else I need to know? Not at the moment. Keep off the radio until you're ready to extract. Chances are they will detect any communication attempts and will act upon detection. Understood. Out. Once he was sure the comms were out, he sighed himself. Nag. Hey! He walked to an edge of look in the water. Taking a breath he didn't need to, he checked the coordinates one more time, then jumped into the water. Cyril slowly descended to the depths, his visibility dropping with the lack of light. Several fish-like mechanoids attacked him on the way down, proving to Cyril how much influence the Maverick Frost had over the world around him. Minutes passed as his drop continued. Light continued to fade around him. He eventually reached the sea floor, grunting slightly at the press of the water around him. He found it hard to move around in the depths, and his ability to dash was severely hampered. Not that I was expecting any differently. I'm sorry, but are we going to go over every detail in this story? This also gave me flat stares, like it was some kind of crowd and rustling someone telling a story or something. Which in their defense would probably be how I would react if someone did the same thing to me. Sorry, it's just that I don't think the temperature of the water you were in is all that important when clearly something more exciting happened later on. Can we just skip to that part? More stairs. In an effort to hide how uncomfortable the stairs were making me, I tucked my left leg under me and tested my toes a few more times. Still there, and they faded a little, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. A few signs like that passed before Dad said anything. Well, alright then. Many minutes filled with mechanical destruction, bone crushing water pressure, and panic later. Aw, you did get scared on your missions. You already knew that, Iris. True, but it's better when you hear the present with the fear affirming with your own ears. Do you kids think we could get back on track? I rolled my eyes. If only Miss Fair knew how often these two got sidetracked with one another. She did, however, look at me. How do you put up with these two? If I figure it out, I'll let you know. Cyril finally located the submarine in question. He quickly found a hatch he could use to infiltrate that sub. Once inside, he took several deep breaths and shook his limbs out, both shaking water off and testing himself for any lasting damage. Once he was satisfied, he continued quietly into the sub to avoid any resistance from the boat's crew. The Leviathan smirked to herself. A schematic of the submarine sounded a monitor on one wall of her stateroom, a blinking red light designating the intruder's location in real time. Jen herself floated on the edge of the pool in the center of the room, her arms crossed and her head nestled on top. Details, Miss Fair, she sighed. Of course. You can barely pay attention in class. How can I expect you to pay attention outside of class? I have quality of that. She checked as the cue to continue. Captain, a voice came through on a hidden speaker. We picked up an intruder on board the ship. I know. I see him here. Should we raise general alarm? No, not yet. Send a couple of medicals to keep him interested. Make sure he follows directions. We don't want him getting lost on the ship. We have something to resist his wants after all. Understood. And soon we'll have something that we need to survive. Once we have that, they'll fall apart like the dominoes they are. The father allowed herself with one giggle. And I have something I want all to myself. Why do I feel like you had that last part just to get on my skin? Because I might have. Did it work? Shut up. A few minutes after they infiltrated the submarine, and some aimless wondering that nobody needed to know about due to the lack of both schematics and communications uplinks, Cyril found himself being approached by a few base model Pantheon soldiers. He drew a sea saber, readying himself for combat. Half an hour later, Cyril stood in an alcove in a corridor that looked like any other he'd gone through. Several destroyed McKillens cleared the corridor behind him. Well, he thought to himself, at least I know they're leading me somewhere. These McKillens are in too perfect a line for them to have just been stationed where they were. Why do I feel like this entire bridge is a time sink? Wow, you were more possessed than I thought you were. Well, we were in the middle of a war, and as far as I knew, I was supposed to be a combat reploid. Just because I was a soldier doesn't mean I wasn't capable of thought. It's not that. It's that your choice and romantic interests may have led me to believe you weren't all that smart to begin with. Seriously, shut up. I'm with her on that one, Leviathan. I'd rather not have to peel it off of you. As I said I was trying to be, I couldn't help but smile a little at the adults, so-called, in the room. Never in my dreams that I imagined three of the people gray and fold to separate our world would be in my family's living room. I never thought they'd be as casual with each other as they were, either. I should note that at this point, I'd pretty much lost all feeling in my foot. I could only hope that leg replacement MIDI order for me would be in soon. Even though I wasn't looking forward to it at all. The mechanics weren't very much of a threat, despite greatly outnumbering Zero. They were able to make short work of the enemies, leaving pots of scrap metal and puddles of oil and various other fluids. Zero continued to make his way to the boat, destroying more pantheons and assorted mechanics along the way. While the soldiers and machines were largely minor threats, quite a few of them did manage to get some hits on them. Eventually, the path of the Arcadian armaments led Zero to a room near the back of the submarine. They found this submerged, swimming out to the middle of the pool. That's the thing, Red. There's no data here for you to take. Never was. The leak? How doing? I knew once that little child got a hold of a location. Mom frowned. I guess Dad left that out of whatever report he made about the mission. Not that I blame him. She wanted to try and get whatever information she could get her hands on. Or at least whatever information she could have you got your hands on, or you get your hands on. 010, slowly moving his arm toward the hilt of his sea saber. As soon as he did though, several words and clicks sounded throughout the room, causing him to stop. I won't do that for you. You see those? The father pointed to several points on the ceiling. Everywhere she pointed to sported an automatic plasma turret, all of which were trained on Zero. Those are designed to detect any threats that don't carry specific pre-programmed digital signatures. Basically, any weapon that gets drawn in this room other than my fraudulent gets pumped with plasma fire. Zero's hand returned to his side. Plasma rounds from all sides had a way of convincing even the most determined soldier from making a wrong decision. Noting his hand, the father swung to the edge of the pool and lifted herself out of the water. As she rose, Zero couldn't help but notice the way the water droplets seemed to roll off of her armor. Even the water that rolled over her face seemed to be in a hurry to stop blemishing her. Zero! Zero's face was a shade of red I think I'd ever seen. Miss Vera started laughing like a maniac. Dad threw his hands up in defense. What? I was looking at the way the water interacted with her. It explained how she moved through the water so gracefully. I could feel the blood threading my throat. I wasn't hearing this. Mom, on the other hand, stood up, her hands bound in shaking fists. Miss Vera couldn't stop laughing throughout the whole thing. Dad cleared his throat. The father had to have seen the way Zero was looking at her. She started slowly making her way in from the pool, her lips in the shape of a smirk and a slight sway to her hips. Only the sound of her heels on the ground and the slight tap of the falling water could be heard between the two. Once she was in close, and certain that Zero was going to make a move. After all, the way Zero had treated all the generals, not just her, gave her the idea that he wouldn't do anything as tricky as using her as a shield while he drew any of his weapons. She draped her arms over his shoulders, locked her fingers to get behind his neck. You see something you like? Zero didn't answer. After having so many bouts with her, he was mostly used to the way she would act around him. He thought she saw it as a personal challenge, see how far she could push him before he cracked. Normally, though, she wouldn't do much more than say a few teasing words or change the way she moved slightly. Those were her preferred methods of messing with him. It didn't hurt that every time she did these things, Sia was usually able to see exactly what she was doing somehow. Seeing her get bent out of shape was as much fun for her as he was trying to see if she could get Zero to do the same. This time, however, she took the teasing to a level she'd never gone to before. The only time she would touch him was when they were fighting, and it was usually with a frost javelin or whatever small projectile she could hide in her armor. Actually, using her own two hands was starting to send warning signals to his head. More signals went off when she started slightly pull his neck to her and rise up slightly on her own feet. Zero could feel his face warming slightly. He was glad Zero couldn't see what was happening now. He was sure she would be yelling at him the entire time. What he wasn't sure about, though, was whether she'd be yelling to watch himself or to watch himself. The father continued to draw Zero's face closer to hers. Her smile slowly stretched further across her features to closer to a cane. Her eyelids slowly drew themselves over her eyes, stopping a hair over her half closed. The seconds seemed to drag on as two elbows closed in on one another. Once the lips were mere inches from one another,